So I met my next guest at an event last fall and was blown away by him, the information that he has available. My next guest is the Veteran Outreach Specialist at the Providence Vet Center, which is actually located in Warwick. I'd like to welcome Paul Santilli.
Hello, everybody. Deb, thanks for having me. And
Thank you.
behind the scenes man, Ben, we have a PowerPoint slide. So when I slide, general public, that means for you too. So as I'm waiting for the slideshow to pop up, here it comes. Quick highlight is that the Vet Center, here it is. So we'll go through it anyway. So Vet Center, we are a nationwide organization. Ben, slide. Might be a little bit of a lag, so I'll just start talking and hopefully it'll catch up. So the slide is about myself. I am Paul Santilli. I'm a licensed clinical social worker here at the Vet Center. There's only one of us in Rhode Island. Multiple other states have multiple. Massachusetts has 6. Connecticut has 4. That's for the neighboring areas. But again, we are, in fact, nationwide. So I bring this slide up for a reason. In face-to-face audiences, a lot of the time it engages in questions. But for this purpose, I want it to be that if you are an employee of the Vet Center, you can be military, you can be retired, or you could be a complete civilian. So this is me. I am a veteran and still currently serving. But if that causes you to talk more, great. If it causes you to talk less, we have other employees who are not military as well. Slide, please. All right, so then this is going to be a video that we're not going to show you. Ben, please, to the next slide after that. Beautiful. All right, so the Vet Centers, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to tell you what I told you. So this is kind of the Cliff Notes table of contents. So what we provide here at the Vet Center is outpatient counseling. We're nationwide. We're congressionally funded. One of the things I hate is the word free. Nothing is free. You sweat for it, you bleed for it, or somebody else pays for it. So when you come to the Vet Center, you'll never see a bill. And that's why I say it's prepaid for by your military service. Slide, please. So a little backstory about the Vet Centers. The Vietnam veterans came home and they didn't have a warm welcome. So Vietnam War technically ended in 1775. Nice try. 1975. And they didn't have a warm welcome. So the Vietnam veterans established these Vet Centers and they became so popular that in 1979, big government, big VA said, we want to buy you out and we want you to do what you're doing. Luckily, the veterans at the time said, we agree with some stipulations, which I'll get into on the upcoming slides. But to tell you up front, it is who they hire and their confidentiality. So slide, please. So with confidentiality, we are federal employees, but we still are mandated reporters. So if you are actively suicidal or homicidal or neglecting elderly or children, we are to mandate that. But outside of that, especially if you're still serving in a military capacity, what you say here stays here. Now, the DoD, Department of Defense, and the VA have file sharing agreements. By congressional mandate, we are exempt from that. So if you're still in, you know the importance of being able to carry a security clearance, to be worldwide deployable, to carry a weapon. So these are things that are in place that you can get help because we want to retain you. We want to keep you healthy to fight the mission. But at the same time, if there is an imminent danger, we will report that. But we'll do it with the individual. We'll make it as comfortable as possible. We don't want you to fear seeking help. And this is part of that confidentiality is why it's so important. All right, next slide, please, Ben. All right, so Vet Center demographics, because this is on Facebook, this slide is actually relevant because these are the nationwide statistics. So when you come to a Vet Center, you are guaranteed to get a professional. somebody who's licensed in some degree or another. Maybe they be a psychologist, a social worker, whatever their certification is in. And then you'll have that split between veterans and non-veterans. Again, there are pros and cons for each individual for who they get partnered up with. And then, so not only veteran versus non-veteran, but also male versus female. Again, pros and cons to each, and the person receiving the counseling, they are in charge. So we want to make them as comfortable and we want to make them as productive as possible when they're in counseling. Beautiful. Slide, please. All right, so mission statement, pretty much it's, we deal with readjustment needs. When you enter the military, they do a lot of wonderful things to teach you how to confront the enemy, how to talk, how to do certain items. But when you come back and you're back in the American environment, some of those wonderful things that they teach you don't exactly go with daily life. So we're here to help you readjust from military environment to civilian environment. Slide. And I like this picture because oversimplifying it, people think when you join the military, this is what you get. Yeah, you get a uniform, you might get a weapon, and then here's a backpack full of all these lovely things. We deal with this on a regular basis, and each person may exhibit or show their behaviors of their either disability or way of life. It can manifest themselves with a behavior from the light end, you know, biting your fingernails, or to the heavy end, flashbacks and other things. So I like this slide because it's a quick, real down and dirty of, yes, we deal with that. All right, slide please, Ben. All right, so here we are. I said a whole lot up to this point. Now I want to break it down a little bit. So when somebody comes to the vet center, what do we actually do? So individual counseling is done, and that can be done in a lot of different ways. We have the old time way from Freudian, big beard, smoking a pipe, staring off into the ether, or modern times where it's more of a modern setting. Sometimes you'll wonder if you're in a corporate setting or like a counseling setting. That's good. And having that ability for the client to decide where they're comfortable is good. Group counseling. We have 3 different types of group. 2 of them I'll get into now. So the first one is theater specific. Everybody in this room has been to Iraq, Afghanistan, Vietnam. We still have a Korean War and World War II group. It's awesome when you see them pulling into the parking lot. But we merged the 2 because of the numbers. The second type of group that we offer is treatment specific. So everybody in this room has PTSD, anger, depression, and they want to learn how to lower the severity of what they have and how they are displaying it to the world. And then it's also building up that camaraderie because, as veterans know, we talk a certain way, we walk a certain way. And so having that group counseling is good. For the family and couples counseling, it is not uncommon for a veteran to have 3 counselors. The first one for their individual needs, the second one for the significant other's individual needs, and then a third counselor to handle the family or to handle them as a unit. This deals with bias. We don't want anyone to be biased. We want to make sure that all the needs are being addressed up front, and that's why it's very common to have multiple counselors partnered with one veteran or one case. For the other things that you see here on this list, you can consider us the dancing traffic cop, just as the previous speaker, Rachel, was saying. If you need something, you come in and you tell us, and if we can't do it, we will make sure you have that warm handoff. Not just call this phone number, but, hey, I want you to speak with, provided a name, phone number, and possibly email address. Slide, please. So as we're part of the VA, but we're a little different. The big thing outside of the confidentiality is our eligibility. So first and most commonly, it's a combat theater deployment. We verify this by the DD-214, which is your discharge paperwork from the military. And on that, we are looking for, an expeditionary medal, a campaign medal, Vietnam War medal, something to that effect. And I would say roughly 90% of the people who come here fall into that category. If you do not have your DD-214, we have ways of getting that as well. Number 2 is survivors of military sexual trauma and harassment. Now, this is a very touchy subject, and rightfully so, but survivors, take a breath. We're not going to ask you for paperwork. We're not going to ask you for police reports or anything that you filed. If you come into our building and you want to address surviving a sexual assault or harassment, we have a clinician here who specifically deals with that, and she's been dealing with sexual trauma and harassment cases for in excess of 15 years. And eligibility number 3, unfortunately, the service member, while they were in service, has passed away. May that be from a training accident, killed in action, or a suicide. We are able to see their surviving family with bereavement and whatever else they need. A lot of times these cases deal with making sure that the funeral arrangements are squared away or the burial benefits from the VBA are covered. And my favorite is the humanitarian. So if what I'm saying is a lot and fast, because I know I'm on a timeline and I am from Rhode Island, so I talk with my hands and I talk fast, don't worry about eligibility. If you need something, come here and we'll figure out how to help you out. Even if we can only see you 1 or 2 times, we're going to find the people in our community that truly support veterans and get you linked up with them. All right, slide. This slide is the 3rd category of the groups I was talking about. So a lot of the modern veterans, the post 9/11 and forward, they're saying, listen, we honor our elder vets. We don't just want to eat donuts and drink coffee. We want to be active. We want to get out there and have fun. So we started recreation groups. And again, these groups, the veteran will never pay anything for. Some of them, it's just the veteran only. Some of them is veteran and 1 guest, and some of them are veteran and bring the whole tribe. So depending on the season, I'm not going to take you skiing or snowboarding in the middle of August. And with COVID restrictions, as a side note, we do that. So we go skiing, snowboarding, summer, we're going surfing. We're currently in the middle of building up our scuba programming. Golf, we have 2 different agencies that we partner with. Art group, emotional therapy. And so this is good because veterans, you need to have that place where it's safe. And if you use some of that dark humor that you used to survive when you were in the military, you're still there and you can still do it. If you are surrounded by civilians as well, the civilians are learning like, yeah, we talk different, we act different, but don't fear us. So there is that healthy duality between doing just veterans and doing the veteran and civilian cohorts. Again, with these groups, they are high ticket value. So we want to make sure that we send thank you out to the contributors who make these events possible. All that is done through Big VA Hospital and voluntary services. So yeah, that is groups. Next is the Mobile Vet Center. And because this is nationwide, I'll spend a little time on this slide. If you are out in a larger geographic state and their vet centers are sparse, we have these mobile vet centers that go out into the community. They act as counseling. Inside of each of these are 2 counseling offices. And then you'll notice on top, there's a satellite package. This is important because we just don't operate in a sterile environment. During the 9/11 attacks, Boston Marathon, city bombings, these roll out and are usually on site for the already patriotic events. They turn into a communications package for either command centers, tactical operations centers, or as far as a tiny office in DC where real-time decisions are being made. So these are great. If you see them out in the community, give them a little beep, give them a little wave. All of them will have a barcode as a graphic on the side. If you take out your phone and take a picture of that barcode, it's going to bring you up to a zip code. You type in your zip code of where you live, and it'll tell you where the closest vet center is to you. I actually believe that is also embedded in this slide as well. Thank you. And so this slide is all about we're human. We have non-traditional hours. We work nights, days, and some weekends. But in the event you call and nobody answers, you will be redirected to the combat call center. This is where you will get a human 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It could be as simple as I have an appointment with Paul and I need to reschedule, flat tire, kid's got runny nose, whatever, that's great. This call center will then say, hey, Mr. Santilli, John Doe had to cancel his appointment. Please schedule with him. That's beautiful. In the event you have not established care and you are in fact crisis, you can call and speak with a human, multilingual, and again, most of these have the minimum of a master's degree. They can ground you out, they can keep you safe, and then they'll let us know that you called. I will say this next slide speaks for itself. If anytime you are depressed or feeling suicidal, reach out to somebody. The veteran community has a reputation for high suicide rates and lethality means. But again, reach out and we will work with you where you're at and keep you safe and healthy. So if you are in Rhode Island and you're viewing this, here is our picture. We are built into the community. As I mentioned earlier, the Vietnam veterans established who we are. So there's no flashing neon signs. We want to be discreet. We want to keep you private. So we're built right into the community. Plenty of parking spaces. And for those of you who actually are familiar with the area, the owner of this law also owns the Dell's Lemonade across the street and what used to be the Brooks across the street. So we got plenty of parking. That should never be an issue. Rhode Island being the size of your thumb. Where's the camera? There it is. Boom. If you don't want to drive all the way, we have contract programs in Middletown and Martha's Vineyard. For many people who work or live in Massachusetts and want to travel, we have very close relationships with the vet centers in those areas as well. So here's that barcode I was telling you about. If you are not in Rhode Island, just take a picture with your smartphone, type in your zip code, and it'll tell you the nearest vet center is 18 miles northwest of your location. It'll give you the phone number, the address. We are a phone call away. And then the last slide is always that wonderful slide of questions. So I've told you who we are, what we do, how we do it, the fact that we are free, and that the veteran is the ones always driving the boat. So with that being said, if there are questions, you can ask them now. If it's a specific question or detailed, then I don't want to break HIPAA or privacy, I believe my email address will pop up or the phone number right there, the 401 area code. And again, I will check the chat box here. And at this point, I think Deb will come back and
So, Paul,
facilitate that portion.
I have to tell you, as you were speaking and you put that code up, I did take a picture, and that picture will work even if you're taking the picture through your computer screen. So if you're looking for that, like Paul said, literally just take a picture of that little black and white box, and it really does bring it up on your phone. That was really cool. So you offer services for family members as well? You can help the veterans' families?
Yes. So everyone here can provide services, counseling, but we have two specific marriage and family counselors here on this property here in Rhode Island. So what the one caveat is, we want to make sure that even though the spouse is coming in, that it is tied to the military service. So if the spouse, let's just say a female wife, comes in because they're depressed, we need to tie her depression into the veteran's service because everything needs to go back to the veteran. As you imagine, with the divorce rates being what they are, if you are married to a veteran, we can usually make that happen without finagling anything. But in the case of children, if little Timmy is in school, depending on COVID, and he's punching other students, okay, is that because little Timmy's a mean boy, or is it because his dad's deployed and he's just acting out with anger? So we want to make sure we can tie it back into the veteran's world and life, because guess what? Little Timmy is making problems for the service member, dad, mom, whoever. So we want to help with that, and we can do that as well.
That's great. And you brought up something interesting, and I know things have changed over the years, particularly since Vietnam. Does someone have to be an opposite sex spouse, or do you work with any individuals in the LGBTQI community?
We have everyone from sexual orientation, gender, outlook, whether they are mid-transitioning or not transitioning. Yes, we do that.
Excellent, excellent. And you said if someone is depressed or suicidal or homicidal, that you'll reach out. What does that look like? Do you call 911 and the police show up, or an ambulance, or how does that look, or does it depend?
So everything's a pendulum swing. If we're here in the office and we already have a rapport with the individual, a lot of the times it'll say, hey, Mr. Doe, John Doe, you're saying some things that are concerning to me. Can we have a plan? Mm-hmm. And sometimes telling somebody can be telling the spouse or a family member, mother, father, somebody. Other times it does need to go up to the next rung, and that can be police or law enforcement. We work very closely with all the law enforcement in Rhode Island. And even if it's a temporary hold of my weapon, we can make those things happen. Because we just don't want you to feel empty or vulnerable where somebody comes in and clears out your armory. So depending on the situation, it's fluid, but a lot of the times we make them part of it. So this way there's no surprises, no random knocks on the door. But in the event that we don't have that luxury, then yes, we will call the police, and sometimes we will go on the ride along. But if we're doing that, it's for a reason. We're not just there to sandbag it.
Right. And I think the statistics say that there are 22 veterans a day that take their life. And that's not okay. And we as a community need to work really hard to improve that statistic. And if it's getting them connected with the vet center, or, resources that Rachel might be able to connect them to, or Dora or Kasim or Lawrence, that's what we need to do as a community to really wrap our arms around our veterans. 22 a day just breaks my heart. And I've seen some data that of those 22, it tends to be individuals who are just coming home from being deployed, or our older veterans. And I know a lot of times loneliness, isolation, depression, those happen as we age because we are alone. And now in the age of COVID, where we're isolated in our houses, makes it that much harder. Well, this has been great.
There's a lot of talk about isolation and solitude. I kind of wish that it wasn't social distancing and it was just physical distancing, because it's kind of that mixed messaging. Some veterans actually thrive in this chaos, right? Because that's what we're trained to do. Others, it takes what they already have and multiplies it by bad. So again, depending on what the situation is, we're in tune to what the data says, and we are flexible. Many veterans say semper gumby, being flexible and being able to ride the wave. So
that's awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions? I can't see them, but
yep.
My email address popped up.
Yep.
There,
that's
we'll go from there.
Awesome. I thank you so much for participating. This has been great, and I'll make sure that your contact information is out there.